The time was 2010. The hype around the early Marvel Cinematic Universe movies were thriving. Iron Man was released and it was extremely successful in 2008. Later on in this era came Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. So, Marvel decided to add another animated show into the mix. This show was Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In this video, we'll be going over why this show was so great, and how it gave rise to the Avengers movie and many other good animated shows to come. MCU at this time period, when the show came out, was not as popular as the MCU we know today, but there was still a huge following with the movies like Iron Man, like I mentioned earlier. Iron Man was extremely successful, bringing in millions of dollars and introducing a lesser-known character into the mainstream audience's views. Next came Captain America: The First Avenger, a not-so-great movie, but the title gave rise to a whole new set of movies, the Avengers. So during this time span, Thor and Hulk also came out. They were not as successful, but they also hinted at that larger Avengers universe. So the show uses this popularity of the characters, but not too heavily. And they put their own spin on the characters, allowing for more stories to tell. The show also puts a more kid-friendly spin on the characters, allowing for a younger audience to view it. Like me at the time, I was not old enough to see the movies, but I was able to watch the TV show. In the show, the roster was a bit different. In the first season, they added characters like Ant-Man and the Wasp to the mix and Black Panther. One of the major plot movers of the show was the conflict between Captain America and Iron Man and their constant battle for leadership of the team. Now, this could have given rise to a Civil War storyline if the show wasn't canceled early. We'll get back to that in a minute. So there's other characters such as Hulk, and we get to see his struggle between man and monster, and I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the series overall. We get to see Hawkeye balancing his old life as a criminal, with his new superhero life. There were many other cool characters introduced in the second series, and they really, these characters were not popular at the time. They were not in the Marvel movies, so they went outside of the box and drew characters from the place where most TV shows based on lore should go from, the comics, on these comic book storylines, although still taking some influence from the movies. The show took inspiration from the Golden Age of comics, along with the current comics at the time. There are many characters introduced in the show that will be introduced later, that wouldn't be introduced into the movies till later, such as Red Hulk, Captain Marvel, and Black Panther, for example. So I thought that was really interesting. This really made the show stand out. Of course, they used characters from the movies, but they weren't afraid to take a risk and use obscure characters from the comic. The storyline of the show was great. Sadly, there were only 2 seasons of the show due to that being canceled. The first series focused on many storylines in each episode, along with some 2-parter episodes. They introduced a lot of villains, such as Ultron and Kang the Conqueror, and they introduced like Black Panther. So I thought the show was really interesting, and it also dove into the backstories of the characters, setting up for the next season of the show and beyond. So I thought the second season of the show was by far the strongest. This followed the Skrull invasion. And if you don't know what the Skrull invasion is, it's Skrulls are basically these shape-shifting alien race. And they have the ability to take the powers and abilities of any person they want. So in this series, the Skrulls came in and replaced some of the characters. Now, for the main run of the show, you do not necessarily know who the Skrulls are until later on. So I thought that was really interesting, and that's how I knew I'm prepared for Captain Marvel now, because I've watched the show and know about the Skrulls already. So in Captain Marvel, if you know, it follows the conflict of the Kree-Skrull War, and the Skrulls are in this series too, and it also follows the Kree-Skrull War and brings in Captain Marvel as well. Also, a major villain of the series would be Wonder Man. obscure character of the comics who has not been touched in the movies, which is kind of sad. But that was definitely cool to see him there. Um, so around this time, Avengers was starting to come out towards the end of season 2. And the show wasn't getting as much views as it used to be, and Marvel was just really looking at what was popular at the time instead of what they could do differently. It's just like things today. You follow the trends to get more popular instead of starting trends yourself. So Marvel decided to cancel the show, which is a really bad decision, and I would believe the show would be thriving today if they hadn't done this. And they wanted to make a more modern spin on these characters. So what they did, they took this series and turned it into Avengers Assemble. Now, I watched Avengers Assemble when I was younger. And I liked it too because it was based off the movies. So what Avengers Assemble did, it just followed the character storylines loosely based on the movies and not relying much on the comics. But by far, the Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes was my favorite show. So the only way you could probably rewatch these episodes is by buying them on like Apple or Amazon or something. But the episodes I would suggest you watch, I'm going to name them here for you. Some of my favorite storylines. Now for season 1, we've got, this is a 3-parter, I believe. It's the Kang Conqueror series. He uses his time abilities and travels back. You get to really dive into the lore of Kang, and it's really cool. There's 2 Ultron episodes. One's called the Ultron Revolution, I believe. This is a really cool thing, and it tees up Ultron. And it gives you a greater appreciation for Ultron in the movie, the Avengers movie, if you watch this too. Also in season 1, there's a lot of backstory for especially Captain America. The Winter Soldier comes back in this series, so that's definitely cool. Again, before all of these movies came out, which is really cool. A lot of people think these characters are original in the movie, but no, they're from the comics. There's Yellow Jacket stuff that starts to happen mostly in season 2, but in season 1 too, Ant-Man kind of has to choose between his Yellow Jacket suit or his other suit. That's a really cool struggle. Of course, this time you kind of get to see the war between Captain America and Iron Man. This war is especially in the first season, so that's really cool. You get to see them fight over leadership, which is a really fun addition. In season 2, of course, you get the Skrulls, but there's a Wonder Man storyline, which is cool. There's a big Hulk storyline. This is before the Skrulls come. The beginning of the season is kind of normal. That's not focused on the Skrulls. It's basically what it has. It has Hulk. Okay, so Hulk has been blamed for this accident that he didn't do. I'm not going to try to reveal too much. And then Thunderbolt Ross comes in, and what he basically does is he becomes the public hero. So he becomes the new Hulk. And the Avengers are even against Hulk at this time, except for a couple. And they let Red Hulk join to replace Hulk. So Hulk's really going on a struggle, and he's being hunted down. He has to expose the Red Hulk to the world. That was one of my favorite parts of the series. And then you get the Skrulls. I'm not going to say who was a Skrull, but you get introduced to Captain Marvel and Sword. Sword is kind of like the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that's really cool. You get introduced to Sword. But then after that, I'm not going to say which Avenger. One of the Avengers was a Skrull, but then he got back to normal, and he has to deal with the public being against him and everyone being against him and thinking he's still evil. So this show was really good. It really got me into superheroes back in the day, and I really suggest you watch it. I'm really sad that it was canceled. I really believe Marvel missed out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little video essay. It's a new format.